What are memory timings and how do they affect performance? Knowledge is power, and the basics are much simpler than most experts would have you imagine. At boot, the motherboard detects a tiny flash memory chip on each module called Serial Presence Detect, or SPD. The SPD contains a configuration table that the motherboard uses to configure memory settings. Each latency number refers to the number of clock cycles that the CPU must wait for the memory to complete an action. Since double data rate memory sends and receives data twice per clock cycle, the frequency shown is half the data rate. The numbers you typically see advertised for any given module are the first four. These are called primary timings, and the first of these is CAS latency. Memory cells are organized like a giant table. If someone were to highlight row 20 and ask you for the data in column G, you'd simply scroll over to column G and read the data. Similarly, column address strobe refers to the number of clock cycles it takes to strobe through columns and access a cell in a row that's already open. Now imagine if you had to find and highlight that row yourself. tRCD is the amount of time it takes to find and open a row. If the wrong row is open, it must be closed before a new row can open. The amount of time this takes is labeled tRP. The fourth primary timing, tRAS, is the combined time it takes to close one row and open another. Because of this, the minimum cycle time it takes to fetch data from a new row is tRAS plus CAS latency. It may be obvious that fewer cycles of memory latency allow the CPU to function more quickly, but what if you're comparing two different memory kits? The math for this isn't too hard, as cycle time is the inverse of frequency. Faster memory has shorter cycle time. Because of that, DDR4 3200 CAS12 is quicker than DDR4 2400 CAS12, and as highlighted here, DDR4 2400 CAS12 is no quicker than DDR4 3200 CAS16. 10 nanoseconds has always been the number to beat for memory performance, and because the math is so simple, performance fanatics can simply pick memory that has no more than one cycle of latency for every 200 megahertz of data rate. I hope you've enjoyed this simplified overview of basic memory timings, even though it left out some of the finer details that might confuse new builders, such as the fact that some memory timings are minimums, or that the legacy term strobe is no longer accurate. Feel free to leave any additional comments below or hit me up at hardware_Tom on Twitter.